welcome to the Ridgecrest City Council meeting on Wednesday, October 1st. Can we have a roll call?
Mayor Endicott,
Present.
Mr. Blades,
Present.
Mr. Rajaratnam,
Present.
Mr. Heyman,
Present.
Mr. Gorman,
Present.
5 present, we have a quorum.
All right, fellow council members, you've been able to see the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Do I have
Second.
motion and second?
Please vote. Everybody's present. We actually get to use this time.
No, I noticed that on YouTube.
5 ayes, motion carries.
All right, next we will have our Pledge of Allegiance. So if you could please stand for that, and please remain standing after for our invocation. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in prayer if you would. Lord, thank you for giving us this day. Thank you for bringing us together to this meeting. Lord, I pray for our country. Lord, give our leaders your wisdom and direction so that they take this country in the right direction, Lord. I pray for our troops who are in harm's way, protect them from all evil. Lord, I pray for our police department, Lord, as they put their lives online to protect this community. Lord, be with them. Lord, be with us as we discuss issues that are important to this community. Lord, give your wisdom and your direction so that the decisions we make are useful to this community. Lord, bless each one of us here today. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, first up, we have a presentation of the Kern Council of Governments by Executive Director Jay Schlosser. Did I say it right? Close. Schlosser? Okay.
Ask my dad. Thank you, Council. I appreciate the time. My name is Jay Schlosser. I'm the newly selected Executive Director for the Kern Council of Governments. And so when I took the post, I thought, well, one of the things, I come from the city of Tehachapi. Just, you know, in previous work history, I was the Development Director there for, 10 or 12 years. And then, very good, thank you. And the chair of one of the committees for the Kern Council of Governments for about 10 years. So that's sort of my path to this. Anyway, I bring that up only to say that one of the things I learned when I was at the city of Tehachapi is that the one member of the city council of Tehachapi that participated with Kern COG knew all about Kern COG, and the other 4 had very little idea of what Kern COG did. And so one of the things I wanted to do when I took this post was to travel around to the 11 cities in the county and the county itself and take a minute to both introduce myself, but also to briefly give you guys a sketch of what we do at the Kern Council of Governments, and then, you know, answer any questions that you guys might have. In your case, you have 2 board members. I know Councilmember Blades spent a lot of years on the Kern Council of Governments board, so you've got a little bit more knowledge here. But with that, why don't I jump in? It's just a handful of slides, and anyway, appreciate the time. So, I pressed the wrong way, didn't I? There we go. Okay. So what is the Kern Council of Governments? We are the federally designated metropolitan planning organization and the state designated regional transportation planning agency. That's a fancy way of saying that we have a mandate from both the federal and the state government to do long-range transportation planning for our region. In this case, our region is all of the county of Kern. There are about 400 MPOs, or metropolitan. You're going to hear me use 1,000 acronyms, so I apologize. It's the nature of the business. There are about 400 MPOs in the nation that meet this federal regulation. And one of the primary things I'll talk about in a minute that we do is we generate an annual, every 4 years we do a regional transportation plan. That's the single big heavy lift that our agency does on a reoccurring basis. So we are also the Kern County Transportation Authority. That's somewhat unique. We do not have a sales tax measure or revenue measure that a lot of counties here in the state of California and across the nation have. But if you did have one, the Transportation Authority would be the basis by which an action like that would take place. In some communities, they are not vested in the same organization, which creates an interesting political dynamic where you have the transportation planners in one agency and the money folks in another. and they fight with each other over that. But that's not the case. Here in Kern County, we hold those hats. We were started in 1970 with a joint powers authority between the 11 cities within Kern County and the county itself. Why do we exist? Again, our primary role is we develop and update a variety of transportation plans. Our primary one is the regional transportation plan, but we also do a number of others that are location-specific or topic-specific. We allocate and manage federal and state money that come to Kern County. We'll talk a little bit about those. I'm sure you've seen some of those funding sources here. We act as a regional liaison, so I do have the opportunity to travel amongst the cities in the county and interact and handle interagency related planning issues, particularly related to transportation issues, but sometimes the scope can get a little broader. We have some secondary roles. I won't go through each one of those, but I think one that's important to note, another acronym, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, the RHNA. The state of California, this is a big topic in California these days, housing. We don't have enough houses, housing prices are too high. There is an entire state process for allocating housing across the state, long range. How many houses do we need in Kern County 30 years from now to meet population expectations? And so KernCog, because of our countywide role, manages that incoming information from the state and expectations, and then we pass those down to the agencies and work with the agencies to plan for those additional houses. We interact with you guys on a number of levels. So obviously you guys come and participate. Now Councilmember Gorman is your representative on our board for our monthly Transportation Planning Policy Committee and Board of Directors meeting. We appreciate you guys participating. We also have a monthly technical committee. That one is where a lot of the engineers from the different cities and the county get together on that committee, and they make a lot of the detailed decision-making associated with how we allocate money and handle issues of transportation items. We have a couple of other committees. We have an annual awards dinner in March that we welcome you to attend. And then we also do a lot of advocacy on your behalf. So even prior to this meeting, I was meeting with your staff about how do we interact with Caltrans on behalf of Ridgecrest for a handful of issues that you guys have. How do we interact with the state and the federal legislature? I was in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago advocating for Kern County's needs. I met with Senator Obernolte and Vince Fong's office, talking to them about some of the East Kern related issues that we have and we see, and so we do that advocacy with you and on your behalf. Some notable projects for you all, just to talk a little bit about the things that maybe bring this home. We don't just do long-range planning, we also handle the money that comes to this region, and it's a sizable quantity of money in terms of directing it and working with our partners at Caltrans to deliver projects. Some regionally significant projects over the years, the US 395 and 14 corridor, the widening efforts that have happened in stages all along 14 and then north in 395 that's all funding that's flowed through KernCog. So if you guys drive those routes, you see those issues. I was speaking with your staff just today about 395 and some of the needs that you have here and how we are going to strategize to try to make advances on that corridor. Highway 58 truck climbing lanes. For those of you guys that travel to the Bakersfield area, you'll know the need for those. The first segment of truck climbing lanes is finally funded and scheduled. Should start in the beginning of 2027. It's a $257 million project. The first piece is we're looking at additional pieces of improvements on 58. For those of you, again, who make that trip from time to time, you'll see those improvements. You probably won't want to drive 58 for a couple of years while we get started. There'll be traffic. A lot of projects in the metropolitan Bakersfield area. As you can imagine, we get pots of money. The vast majority of the population of Kern County is located in the metropolitan Bakersfield area, so they receive the majority of the funds that come to our region. That's not taking anything away from you all, but a reality of the county that we live in. And so there have been numerous sizable projects recently completed and underway still, 58 and 99, 7 Standard Road, a number of others as well. And KernCog also worked extensively on the State Route 46 widening effort that's happened in stages over the last 10 or 15 years. So if you guys travel to the coast and take that route, then you'll know what I'm talking about. And then locally, I've listed a handful of projects that we have record that you guys do. We work with your staff in identifying how we're going to allocate the funding sources that we have. Those are a list of some of the streets that have been resurfaced or paved recently. And I estimated that in the last 10 years, we funneled just under $10 million to the city of Ridgecrest for these various projects. So these are real-world examples of what KernCog does and how we manage that flow of money, lands, impacts, and hopefully improves your community. So a little deeper dive on how we provide assistance. That regional transportation plan I keep talking about, that's about half our staff is full-time on generating that plan. That's a highly detailed traffic model, a computer model that models all modes of traffic all over the county of Kern, over 3,000 centerline miles of roadway. Kern County's larger than a couple of our states. So that's a pretty extensive effort. I've got 4 modelers that work full-time on maintaining that document and updating it and then projecting forward. Where are the houses going to go? Where's the industry going to go? How are we going to change the way we drive? All that data into that model as we predict how things are going to change in the future and then look at ways to accommodate those changes. We administer a humorous list of acronyms. These are funding streams. I always like to put this in here just because it makes me chuckle. It's the world I'm in. It is very much acronym driven. These are all different programs of funding, but you guys have recently received CMAQ, LCTOP, REAP, RSTP, and TDA, TIRCIP also, TIRCP. Sorry, I have names for these acronyms, but these are funding sources you see. We also work with you to pursue larger, more regional transportation projects, the bigger items, especially things in your case like SR 395 and 14 and US 395. And then we also work with that acronym list of agencies, though, but those matter to you guys: Caltrans, California Transportation Commission, Federal Transit Authority, Federal Highways. These are all these agencies that regulate and manage the flow of these tax dollars back to our region. So what does the future hold? I'll kind of end here. This is my last slide. It's just to talk to you guys about a little bit about what we're doing and then what our challenges are. Our RTP, I think I told you, is a 4-year cycle. That 4th year is next year, 2026. So we're in the final stages of adopting that document. We've begun to push out requests for feedback from you all. Maybe you've seen some of those. A big part of what we do is wanting to hear from the public about what they think the priorities ought to be. Should we build more? Should we build light rail? Should we pave more roads? Should we have more bus routes? Should we build more bike paths? These are all things that the public, we want their feedback on what matters to them. I put in here the TRIP program. That's the big program of money in metropolitan Bakersfield. That's coming to an end. Nearly all that money has been spent, and so you won't see the large projects in Bakersfield going forward that you have seen in the last 10 years. And so what does the future hold for metropolitan Bakersfield and the county, the larger county? High-speed rail is something we also keep an eye on. I don't manage that funding. I don't make decisions about how I use that because I know how popular it is or isn't depending on where you're at. But it is coming to Kern County. And then we can talk about that if you like, because the state made a recent announcement and a commitment of funding to high-speed rail that has implications for Kern County. And so we keep a close eye on what they're doing. Like it or not, it is the largest infrastructure project in the history of California, which is a pretty big statement. Long term, here are some of our challenges. The cost of delivering transportation projects grow faster than inflation. So the money's not keeping up. Competition for unique money or special one-time money from federal and state sources is serious. The competition is extreme and it's growing. County-wide residential growth, here's an interesting little factoid, because Bakersfield, as you guys probably know, used to be one of the fastest growing places in the country. It's slowed significantly. I think that has to do with a number of things. I could pontificate if you like, but it has slowed. But interestingly, industrial traffic has exploded. Truck traffic. I think you guys know this. We certainly know it. I happen to still live in Tehachapi, so I know it on the 58. It's a major issue, but even in West Kern, it's a major issue as well. So that presents new transportation challenges that are different than just capacity on a roadway for a car. And then roadway expansion projects are very unpopular at the state level. Less so now at the federal level with the change in administration, but at the state level, adding lanes to freeways is unpopular. That's a reality, so that presents challenges when we figure out what we need for Kern County. So that's what I've got for you. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Again, I just want to take the opportunity to introduce myself and say hello. So thank you for the time.
Oh, thank you, Jay.
Thank you. Any questions? There we go.
I'll offer a bit of a supplement to Jay Schlosser's presentation. Much of what we discussed just recently had to do with the breathtaking storm Mario that offered too much water in too short a time to such a dry desert. But it also offered almost a theme to our pre-meeting conference and will into the future. That was it, Jay.
Yeah. So it's a great topic. We talk about those drainage and roadway as part of the puzzle. So happy to see if I can help. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, I'm good.
No,
I
he's
spent
been
a lot.
on.
Yeah, spent a lot of time with KernCog. I appreciate everything you're doing. Like I was saying before this, you're filling Aaron's shoes, which are big shoes to fill, but I'm sure you'll hit the ground running. So
But, yeah, I've got to deliver the money. That's what the KernCog board wants, and I respect and understand that mission. So that's the plan.
I've been able to say it here on the dais, and I'll repeat it here again. What I did find is that a lot of times, by the time the electeds got to the board, the engineers and staff at KernCog had largely handled and had a very good handle on everything that was going on. And I think that in the far past, I'm talking like 10, 20 years ago, maybe that wasn't always the case. But things are running, from my view, very well right now. So it seems like you have a sound organization.
Yes, that's true. Aaron did run an excellent organization and left me in a very strong position. So
Awesome.
time will tell if I'm up to the task.
I have nothing. I appreciate the deep dive into it, or at least the
Sure.
glance at it. About the home increases, or how are you guys making the projections of where people will live, where industry might go? Like, what's the process? I know it probably is a timely one, but
It's, yeah, a number of different sources. So where we determine houses will go is actually a negotiated process that happens here at the county. So the state of California, they track it at a state level, and they tell each county or each MPO, in the case KernCog, this is how many houses we think are going to land in Kern County in the next 30 years. And they pick a number, 30,000 new homes, something, you know. And then what the COG does is we facilitate through the COG board an extensive conversation with the agencies over, you know, what they think they're going to, what part of, say the number's 30,000 for Kern County for 30 years. Okay, well, Ridgecrest, how many here's how many we think. We'll divvy that number up, and then we'll begin a process of back and forth with the agencies trying to figure out what the right balance is. And so that's part of that process, is asking you what you know is occurring, what your staff knows is coming down the pipeline versus what we think is realistic. In this last round of RHNA, most of the new housing landed on Bakersfield, and the reason is because there's a big push statewide to densify housing, right? To build less single-family homes and build more multifamily homes. Well, the only place where that's logically going to occur on scale, it'll happen in all the cities, but the places where it'll happen in big way is metropolitan Bakersfield. And so didn't have too tough a negotiation. Some years that negotiation can be tricky, because with that allocation comes obligation for each of the agencies to attempt to obtain that goal, to make active moves to obtain the goals. And so it's always an interesting process of negotiating that out. But yeah, so that's part of the job.
awesome. That's all I have.
Very good. Okay. Well, thank you
Thank you.
again for the time. I appreciate you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Next on the agenda is public comment of items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Council will not respond to any public comments, but may provide direction to staff to collect information. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the city council may not act on an item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Are there any persons wishing to make a public comment?
Yes, name is Mike Neal, and just for people who are not aware, which is probably a lot are not, the ongoing saga of the groundwater authority and the groundwater the pipeline and that whole mess, which has turned out to be, took a turn recently with the latest court decision that indeed the Navy does not own all the water in the valley. They have a right to 2,000 acre-feet per year, which leaves the rest of it up to be decided. It also basically throws back up for questioning and reevaluation the groundwater sustainability plan, because that was totally based from day one on the presumption that the Navy owned all the water in the valley. Well, that's not the case. So, in that with respect to that, the Water District, which was the one who led the charge, at least conjunctively, to get this latest decision about does the Navy own all the water in the valley or not done, they have in turn filed suit to validate the groundwater sustainability plan. So that is going to now force what I would call a much more objective look at the recharge and the use of the water coming out of the basin and how much there is in storage and all those factors. That's now in the courts and in the works, and of course it's a court case, so it'll take a while. But I think we may see some sanity returned to this whole process and the decisions being made about the groundwater and how much we're sitting on top of and how much is available for usage, and in hopefully not a massive amount of time. We'll get some decision made on that and have a little more sanity, and maybe even include the use of the recycled water into that equation, which the Groundwater Agency has basically refused to even do at all before now. That's all for that. Another little tidbit of information which I'd found to be very interesting and was you'd only know if you came to the drone town hall, which was last week, and comes to find out that there's obvious concern on the part of the police chief about safety at large events. Even though we have about 8 on average officers at every event, which is, I think, a lot of officers for events that size. They're watching over everything. They're going to keep it safe. They're going to make sure you don't break the law. We're also going to have a drone above those events. And we're going to have a spotter somewhere on a high point watching out, looking and ready and armed. So if you want to feel really, really safe, come to one of these city parties, because it's going to be the most policed event you're ever going to attend. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other persons wishing to address the council during this public comment section? No? No phone calls? All right. Moving on for council announcements and direction.
You bet. So I was just talking with Narissa, Parks and Rec Director. October the 10th, there's going to be a movie in the park, and they're going to be watching Flubber. And what's cool is they're also going to be making slime during that. I don't know if you're going to be doing other things, but it seemed like the cool thing was making slime while watching Flubber. So just if you bring the kids out, sounds like a good time.
Yes, sir. I want to talk about a couple of things because the news is not going out in the sense like when it is in the newspaper, people still ask, oh, is that right? I didn't know about that. That's why I wanted to bring this up about the massive, what should I say? The employee housing which based it on Highway 178. So I think it's 840 units approximately. So people were worried when it started, what is going to happen? Is that going to be a dilapidated units and there will be crime increase, people will be living there. So I want to make the public aware that as the base reconstruction is coming to the close, the officer in charge of construction, he released a statement saying that they would be demolishing the units in a phase-wise, starting with late fall. So it will be done in phases. So I just want to make sure everybody is aware that that is going to happen. And they said it will happen without creating any issues to the traffic or to the neighborhood. So I want to thank the base for being a good neighbor to us, and also for being part of the economic growth of Ridgecrest. So in that context, I also want to mention that we attended ribbon cutting for Range Control Center. Mayor attended, and Councilman Gorman and Mayor Pro Tem Kyle Blades. So that's an awesome building. It's a 3-unit building, I think, right? And the total square footage for that is 120,000, and they spent $242 million to build that. So we should be very proud to have a great facility, world-class facility next to us. So I thank the base for taking care of this and making sure the reconstruction project is completed, and so that we can all get the benefit and our economy would be boosted because of that. And the second one is I want to make a mention about the storm we had on 18th, which created flooding and also some damage. So I want to thank the Public Works Department as well as Parks and Rec, led by Narisa, for acting quickly to make sure there is no additional damage. I would appreciate if Assistant Manager Travis Reed can give us an update how the millions of dollars which we gave to you help to not to have the major damage because of this flood. So can you say something about that, please? And if you have learned any lessons out of that.
So, hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Is
you're
it
there.
going?
You're good.
I
Yeah.
can't tell. All the improvements that we did function quite well. I think especially notably is the improvements we put in over by Richmond School. We saw massive amounts of water. We did some research today. We got 1.76 inches in an hour, and we got a total of 3.1 inches within the storm, which we would classify that as a 1 in 1,000 year event. So other than French Street, where we had an inlet that was closed because the grate hadn't been started yet, and then once we got that inlet open so we could allow the water to flow in it, the water subsided rather quickly. Other than that, I think all the improvements that you guys have authorized functioned quite well. Within 2 days, the sump we dug was dry, so it's percolating. It's doing its job there on Felspar. And the saving grace was literally 2 days before that, we got the pipes connected to all the basin inlets on Norma Street. If those pipes would not have been connected, we would be having a far different conversation. But all in all, the money that I think you guys gave us was well spent. It has done what I thought it would do. I think as we continue to complete the AHSC project, it's only going to get better. With the inlet we put in, and it hasn't been connected just yet on Las Flores, we're gonna take water away from Balsam Street, and it's gonna help alleviate the flooding at French and in that area even more. So thank you for your trust in seeing the vision that I have, and I hope to God that we can find a way to keep getting more and more funding to do more and more drainage, because in my opinion, that is the only thing emergency-wise that we are not prepared for.
Thank you, sir. That's all.
I'll just add to that, Travis. I went around the following morning and looked in those two big, sumps that you call it, and was amazed at where the water line was and where it was at 8 o'clock in the morning. It had dropped considerably just overnight. So I think that's a really good outcome for that project, and to know that it is taking in a lot of water and it's putting the water down rather quickly, so.
Councilman Gorman?
Quickly, I participated in the Machurango Museum's open studio tour this last weekend, and I enjoyed interacting with many of you one-on-one, talking about city issues and swapping ideas about metal art. I sincerely appreciated it. I was thinking about our little sister city to the south of here, Randsburg, took a sincere beating in Storm Mario. I don't know to what extent they're back up on their wobbly feet in Randsburg right now, and nor to what extent Ridgecrest was able to offer any assistance by way of perhaps heavy equipment or backbreaking labor to help that city get back on its feet. So, Travis, if you have anything to add, I should have asked while you were still at the first microphone. Thanks.
I just want to point out that I was really happy to not see Reed on here, but
So I got a call from Chris Hill about Randsburg. Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to get heavy equipment up there. So we weren't really able to offer any equipment or any assistance. We actually had a bunch of rented equipment trying to get our streets cleaned back up after that and get Drummond and Mahan got pummeled. There's a lot of areas that we were working kind of on taking care of our community. So in the future, I would hope to be able to offer it and have the ability to do that. But at this point in time, we really just don't possess the tools to get things and equipment up there.
Thank you.
all right. Next, we will move on to the consent calendar. All items listed on consent are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the city council concerning the items before action is taken. There's one consent item and it is listed on the posted agenda. Does any member of the council wish to have an item pulled? Does any member of the public wish to have an item pulled? Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second.
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries.
All right. Next, we will move on to discussion and action items. Item number 2, the proposed approval of increased appropriations to the fiscal year 2025 budget for an emergency well repair at Leroy Jackson Sports Complex.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Council. So I'm here today, back on August 26th. Our maintenance staff showed up for their shift and noticed that the sprinklers weren't running, nor was the grass wet. So at that point, they started to investigate to find out what the problem was. They discovered that the well was down. They opened up the box to look at everything, and they found that there was burnt wires. So at that time, we contacted Independent Well Drilling to come out and take a look at it. This is a company that we use to repair the Freedom Park well when it went down. And when they pulled at the well and took everything apart, they learned that the pump and the motor had suffered severe burn damage and needs to be replaced. So on my staff report, I listed the recommendations from Independent Well Drilling for them to go back in. They're going to bale and airlift to clean out inside of there because we have some silt and stuff in the bottom of the well, so we've lost some depth. They will, if they don't find a plug at the bottom, they'll install another one to prevent gravel from migrating into the PVC liner. They'll descale, brush, and disinfection of the plugged screens and casing to remove black algae, and then install a gravel filter. And then they will, at the very end, they'll put in a properly sized pump and motor and have our well back running. So I'm here today asking council to approve $60,000 to be allocated for the repairs of this well. I'm also asking, I didn't add it on the staff report or the resolution, so I'll have Rika make that adjustment, or I will, for council to approve and waive the normal bidding procedure due to the urgency for the need of repairs. At the moment, we're using one well, so we're putting a lot of pressure on that one. So we want to try to get this one fixed as soon as possible. And with that, I'm open for any questions.
So I honestly, I was actually hoping that you would read item number 1 in the recommendation, because I have no clue what those words are. Bailing and airlifting via dual trimming of the pip and packer to clean and regain original depth.
I think the one is supposed to be pipe, so I missed the E.
Oh, okay. Oh, I was hoping it was Pip and Packer, because honestly, that sounds like a good band name, but, okay, Pipe and Packer, okay.
My apologies.
Right. I have no other questions. Any other council members?
Just real quick, Narissa, I'm sure that you've already talked with finance and with city manager, and you guys know exactly where you're pulling it from.
Okay.
And it seems to me like going sole source when you have a sense of urgency like this makes the most sense. So I totally agree with waiving that bidding process as long as we're well within regulations to do that. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Narissa, we are repairing one of those things. What is the condition of the other one? So how old is that? Did it create any problems in the past?
We haven't had any trouble with the other one. It's just been this one. This is the same one that we repaired back in 2022. And that one, we used a different company. So this time we're going with a different company that we used just recently and haven't had any issues since.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't hear who, I'm preempting you, I'm sorry.
You're good.
I didn't hear who you called and came to
It's
aid.
independent well drilling.
Okay, and we all try to be experts out here in swamp coolers and wells. We don't know much about much else, but was the well pooled? Was the submersible
Yes.
pooled and it had failed?
The pump and the motor burn out because we were pulling in silt into it, so.
Okay. And was it re-drilled?
No, we didn't need to re-drill. I did bring Travis Reed in to consult with him with the well company to make sure that the decisions that were being made were the right ones. When we spoke with Independent Well and Drilling, they recommended that we can make these repair and we'll get another 10 to 15 years out of the well.
Oh, terrific. My friend, thank you.
You're welcome.
That answered my question. I was concerned about the depth of it too, if there was any worry of, overall depth, but we're good.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Public comment.
Oh, are there any members of the public that wish to ask a question or speak? Seeing none? Thank you, Martin.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second.
Please vote.
Thank you, Narissa.
5 ayes, motion carries.
All right, next we will move on to discussion, our action item number 4, discussion regarding the East Kern Healthcare District.
Yes, I asked for this item to be on. I appreciate entertaining it. I followed LAFCO, and that it was at least LAFCO approved that the East Kern Health District would annex into this area. I think
we approved the sphere of influence, the municipal service review, and the annexation.
correct. So, and then as I understand it, the next step then is there to be a protest vote.
Yeah, but there will be, LAFCO is coming here to talk to the citizens about it. I believe it's October 14th.
14.
Yeah, I think it is the 14th, and it's going to be
Spring
in the
Hill
Spring Hill.
Suites.
Yep, that's true. Good. I'm just bringing it up because your town hall was a good thing. I think it gave people a chance to hear things they hadn't heard before. So I wanted to make sure we had this discussion here. And if anybody was listening to the city council last time, I brought up a few things because this is leading right to the hospital being in the district, which I believe is a generally good direction, especially when we see that there is going to be a lack of funding coming from state and federal sources. I think we all understand that. The district is going to allow for grants and monies to be moved. I believe those are good things. If you would detect caution in my voice, the caution is that I want to make sure that it's done right. This city council of the city of Ridgecrest do not have any direct involvement in the contract that'll be talked about between the district and the hospital, but we do have a political relationship, and we do have the influence of this board, and I think that we need to be having discussions with the hospital about what that contract looks like. Because once you are an entity such as being a part of that district, and there's going to be public monies possibly going back and forth, we have a direct stake in how that affects the citizens of Ridgecrest. And I think it's imperative that we are involving ourselves as much as possible. Now, I mentioned at the last meeting that in my mind, what I thought that would look like, and I don't think it's unreasonable, that since the city, we can all tell. We can tell the direction this is going. We know where this is going to eventually end up. I think having a publicly elected official, an appointee, with the hospital board, as well as the East Kern Healthcare District being elected, I think that is logical and makes sense. And I think that's well within the realm. That's reasonable to ask for. So what I'm hoping is that we collectively echo that to the hospital.
I agree with you, that I think it would help, right? I think my only concern is that it's a private entity, and we have no reason to compel them to do anything.
Well, so that's what I meant by the political statement. We absolutely do. We have every reason to compel them to want to be, because those monies that go back and forth, the inevitable tax that's going to be asked for, I think let's just say it out loud. I mean, the people can feel where things are going. I think your elected representatives being on board or not being on board with that is a huge thing. And us constantly just pretending like our arm's twisted so we have to do something, I don't think is the right answer to the public. So I would think that, and I mean this genuinely, if were I either on the hospital board or were I running the hospital, I would actually see it as a positive that you would want somebody, some sort of elected official there to give, just like we give our committee reports, to be up on this board saying, hey, I was there, I'm only one person, but I can tell you that things seem to be going the right direction, or, hey, I had my objections, right? Not unlike Mr. Hammond being on the GA. It's not like we haven't had conversations where Scott has not always been okay with everything that the GA is doing, but one way or the other, it's good that we at least have some insight. So I would actually think that it's a win-win, to be honest with you. The second part of that is that board's in Cal City for the healthcare district. We would hope that people would run from Ridgecrest, but if they don't, that's a board not from here having that insight. So I think that's food for thought, and I'm hoping it's fodder for discussion that I'm welcoming, and those all seem like logical conversations to have with the hospital, and I would actually think they would welcome them.
Yeah, I was going to kind of chime in on a little bit of it on that same topic, because in the resolution, it was referred to as the district, East Kern Health District. The district will be overseeing actions of the hospital, but and be meeting with their board. But their board, the board, I think, from what I could gather out of the resolution, would stay the same, and that the district would not be liable for any monies that would, or liabilities or debts that the hospital may incur in the process of this whole change.
Also, as I understand it, yeah.
And so I guess that's a little bit of concern I have, is that while it seems like a good idea, what changes are going to be made to rectify the processes that have brought the hospital into this arena that it's currently sitting in. So they did say that it will bring on a larger amount of bureaucracy, for lack of another word, and that the board would maybe look at expanding by a few seats, and that we may be able to have someone from our locale be on that board, which I think would be good. But anyway, that's just some of the concerns that I have with it.
Yeah, as I understand it, So let me also say this as a part of this discussion, because I know I just jumped right into it and I didn't give a lot of context. I think the hospital is working really hard to do the right thing and get there. I know they're working very well with the healthcare district. I know that the district itself is happy to have them on board. So it all seems, very kumbaya, but it has big implications for this community, and we need that hospital to be successful. And I think for it to be successful, if there's going to be public dollars traded, then that part of that process is having public oversight. I know that, I looked it up briefly. I think there's only 2 seats for the healthcare district coming up in '26. Next, I think it's not, another election's not till '28 for the rest of the seats. So it's important. It's important, and I just don't want, this is big enough that I don't want us to go, well, we don't really have some teeth in the back and forth on this contract, so it's not in our hands. I think it's absolutely in our hands, and I think this is not as, yeah, we may not have a legal pause or a legal stop, but I think it's well within our scope to be having these strong conversations with the hospital. Or, and I know this is going to sound harsh, or we need to say, you know what, we're not going to support this. We're not going to support your future endeavors.
Okay, so what does that look like, right? Because this is a private entity having a negotiation with the district.
I think so. We already have a very good relationship with them, as far as I know, and I know that you and the city manager have had conversations with the hospital, right? Mm-hmm. That's what it looks like. Having that good relationship going bad. Nobody needs that. Nobody wants that. I don't want it. And I can tell you, because like I said at the beginning of this, we know where this is going. This is, if services need to increase at the hospital, and again, I'm pontificating, right? I don't know. If services need to increase, if there is more issues with the state and federal funding, if Blue Cross contracts don't get worked out the way we hope they do, if the hospital needs to expand, what we're going to end up doing is seeing that right on a ballot. And we know there's going to have to be taxes, property taxes coming out of this community. This council would need to support those.
I agree with what Councilman Kyle Blades is saying, but I think it is too early for us to jump into conclusions because there are a lot of steps to take place. I think it would be another 1.5 to 2 years before everything is finalized. And I understand before that we want to make sure things are going in the right direction. So, and as Mayor mentioned, it is a private entity, so I don't know how much control we have on that. I mean, with all due respect to city manager and other city council members, I brought this issue when hospital was going to close the OBGYN. Mm-hmm. At that time, we said, it's not our problem. I hate to bring it up, but I would let hospital board deal with this for the time being and then decide. I mean, there should be an agreement between the district and the hospital how things are going to happen, whether hospital is going to have, the existing board is going to have control on the hospital or not, or if East Kern District is going to control, is the property going to be leased to them, or is the property going to be here and they will be renting it to them? So these are all the issues that has to be nailed down. And coming to the taxes, any tax, the voters have to approve with 2/3 majority. So that's not an issue. They cannot levy taxes on us, as far as I know. Correct me if I am wrong. So I'm not worried about that, because if the voters want to place a tax and then they vote on that, then it's up to them. So you and I cannot say anything about that. But the most important thing is we need to make sure things go in the right direction, and we will continue to have the benefit of having a hospital and all the facilities they provide to us in the near future also. So, thank you, sir.
Councilman Gorman, do you have any?
I want to say I agree with Councilman Blades and Councilman Hayman, what they had to say. If through this annexation, there's more communication between elected officials and the general public and the hospital board, that would be a good thing, especially if we get a view of what's coming and get an opportunity to stand up and question it. There are some decisions the hospital board and management has made that I question, but I never knew who to ask.
So I have a few comments to add on. First off, we absolutely have a say and should be. And I tracked as much as I could when the issues first came up. And you're right, at that time, there was nothing we could do about the situation the hospital was in. There's a reason there's nothing that we could do, because it was not brought to our attention until things were already being shut down. We were not brought into conversations. And I have to speak for the people in this community that talk to me on a regular basis. And again, this is gonna sound harsh, but I think it's time that we said a few harsh things up here. The community's not happy. They are not happy with the way the hospital's been ran. And I think large of it is it's just optics. I'm not there. I'm not a CEO, I'm not an hospital administrator. It would be unfair for me to level specific accusations. But what I can say clearly and for sure is that I don't think there's hardly anybody in this community that I've talked to that said they are happy with the way things are going at that hospital. So I think it's well within our scope to say, hey, we could not have done anything at the time, and yeah, we don't, and still don't have the money to go and pump up and fix the hospital. That's an accurate statement. But it is well within our scope to start politically getting involved and start making sure that this conversation's happening. And I think it makes total sense, and I think there's other hospitals that have done it, that you have an elected member on that board, and I don't think that's unreasonable. I think it's a win-win. And I think it actually adds that transparency that the community's looking for.
So I will argue that what we're experiencing here with our hospital is the endemic that is happening with rural health across the country.
That's fair.
We are continually seeing, I mean, we just got an alert that Lone Pine potentially is on their last few legs. You can look at most of the studies. There's decent academic journals that have covered the downfall of rural health. And I'm sure most of those communities, right, wish to have more input. And I understand that. However, I will say from a, not even like a libertarian mindset, but when a government entity is trying to control a private company, I think if you put that situation into any other avenue, the vast majority of at least right-leaning individuals would be overtly against government interference in a private entity. I get that there is a health outcome and health inclusion and that there's tax money that they're going to be able to, but according to what we discussed at LAFCO, that at some point, and Councilman Rajaratnam is absolutely correct, this will be a long negotiation period.
Sure.
It will be a while until they actually come to an agreement on what the verbiage is in the contract, what the responsibilities are for the different stakeholders, and what each entity is willing to give and get.
So
I have something, can I respond?
That you're not in support of the merger with East Kern?
No,
Being that it
no, I
takes-
think
controls
given,
a private entity?
no, I think that when they actually merge, they might not be a private entity anymore. And if they become a district hospital, that might be something different than a private entity. That way they can receive the funding and get the
'Cause I know
different
that-
reimbursements that they are asking for.
I know that other hospitals within the state are in the green economically or money-wise.
Are they rural hospitals? Probably not.
Well, maybe not. but I'm saying that hospitals can run within, you know, parameters that they're confined to. So I think that's the important part, and maybe part of what we should be doing too is staying in, as Councilman Gorman said, good relationships with the East Kern District in what our views are and wants and concerns are with this process, because maybe they have more, we may have more input or what would you say, leverage to, you know, push for certain aspects of versus going to the hospital or.
Well, so I've had at least a good conversation with a member of the board there, and it was very positive. I love the direction that we're going, right? Let's open that sphere of influence. Let's make sure people get health care. Where I have to push back on you, Mr. Mayor, is I don't think it's a right-leaning libertarian. When people pay their tax dollars, they want accountability. End of. And so when there's a private board getting public dollars, that's a totally different ballgame. We're not talking about we're just trying to insert ourselves into a private business, which happens every day, whether we like it or not. Government ends up getting their hands in everything anyways. But I'm saying in this specific instance, becoming a part of a district, which they will, at least as I understand it, be part of the district. And as it stands now, at least the informal, not agreed upon plan is they'll still have an 11-member board. Great. What I'm saying is, you're not controlling anything with one member, either from the city council or the county, being on that board. You're not controlling that board. So what I mean is that I don't really understand exactly where you're coming from. The government, there's an elected board that we can't control, right? At least at this point. So basically, what really changes besides the hospital gets public dollars?
That you have to get a private entity to allow that. And
That's what I'm asking. I'm asking you guys to support that. That's really what I'm asking. I'm hoping that you will say, yeah, you know, let's have those conversations. You're the one with the relationship with the hospital, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure, Solomon, you have too. I don't have that relationship. And as a council, if we're echoing that and telling them we're just looking for that accountability, we want this to be successful. I want it to be successful. I want to look 10 years from now and know that we have a healthy, vibrant hospital. I want any kind of services that we lost to be back. My biggest thing, that at least as long as I've been on this board, women's health care. It's been lacking for as long as I've been here. And I can tell you that I have not always had positive conversations, either with the public or otherwise. So what I'm saying is, I would love to see those services come back, and I want it to be a great success. But I think we need to be echoing our wants. And you're right, we have no legal trigger to make anything happen. But we have this dais. And we have our influence on how we talk to people when we're out in the community. And I think they're going to want to know that we're doing everything we can to make sure that it is transparent and there's accountability.
I get that, right? And I'm on board with you. I want to see the hospital succeed, obviously. But I'm just trying to temper expectations that when you're asking a private entity to allow entrance, right? And, you know, you yourself said that you've said some harsh things about the hospital.
Just now today.
Yes, that's what I'm
not
saying.
before now, but just today.
And I find it a weird tactic.
I think that if you're not honest and we're not having honest conversations, then what are we doing up here?
No,
I've sat here for 5 years being as nice and showing as much decorum as I can. And I got to tell you, when it gets to certain points, I become exhausted with just being polite, because the politeness means oftentimes we're cheating the public. So I'm usually very much one for decorum and politeness. And I like conversations to happen before we ever get up here, so we can make sure that the public doesn't think that this is some kind of a circus. Right, but this is a scenario.
I think this type of conversation, I think it's warranted, it's wanted, right?
So it's not a weird tactic. Matter of fact, if I was running the hospital, I would want to hear this conversation, and I would go, hey, City Councilman Blades, you had those things to say. I want to hear them. I want to know why you think it is we can do this. But those conversations haven't happened. I've been here for 5 years. They don't happen. We have received a lot of pushback, actually, in the past. So what I'm
I don't want to dive into it, right? I'm still trying to be nice, and I'm still trying to
No.
show some decorum. So my point is that I think it's time that we at least voice these concerns and these opinions, and that when we're moving forward like this, with a lot of momentum, that I'm sure the citizens of Ridgecrest do not feel like they have much say in. So if this momentum's going to move forward like that, that we're at least saying something.
Again, I'm not countering anything that anyone has said up here. All I'm doing is that we need to understand to temper our expectations, because we would then be, right, at some meeting, we would be asking the hospital to let us into a private entity, which they may or may not allow. And so my question was, what do we do then, right? And so then you said, then we use our standing here on the dais.
Yes.
And we influence the public to not support or to support
Yes.
things like that.
Yes. Yes, I mean that, and I know it sounds like I heard you earlier, sounds like an odd tactic, right? No, it's not. We just need to be clear about the conversation. And these are honest conversations. I started this out by saying, I appreciate everything they're doing. I think we're going in the right direction. But if we're ever going to get to healthy, we got to be honest along the way.
Any other comments?
I don't find the tone nor the words to be at all pugnacious, just candid, and I agree with them. Overall, in my opinion, the hospital's profile has been way too low under the circumstances. Storms on the horizon, I expect to hear from somebody, either the CEO, go public, or perhaps a vociferous member of the executive board to start speaking out. I don't hear anything. And indeed, if we were hearing more, we may not be having this conversation right now. So maybe this annexation is what's required to get a bigger dialogue going between the hospital and the community or the region, or district, as you people say. That's all I have.
So I will go back to our town hall. I was alone right up there. I had city manager Strand helping, and Karen Macedonio was on the screen and trying to answer questions. I tried to say at the outset that I am not a hospital policy expert, but I would try to answer it in the best way possible that I knew how to convey what I knew about the situation. I would have loved to have the hospital present.
Where were they?
They were unable to for legal reasons.
Oh.
I would have loved to have had Navy input. They were unable to for legal reasons. And so I used that town hall as a way to try and not only get information out, but get the questions and concerns of our public and then take them to Bakersfield. Which I was happy for Lorraine. Lorraine, I am blanking on your last name right now, but she was good enough to write down all the questions that people were asking, and I took them to LAFCO and asked the most pertinent ones at the meeting. But, you know, I say we ask. I say we create that dialogue with the hospital. We see what they say, and we go from there.
Absolutely. And there's a good chance that answer is, we don't want you involved. Okay, that's fair. If that's the answer, that's the answer. I wouldn't say that would be a very good option or a very good answer on their part, but we'll see what happens.
Did you? I think I cut you off if you had something.
No,
else.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Public. Would any members of the public wish to comment? If so.
Alex Gross. I would like to express my support of Councilman Blades' motion that the city government should use some of its influence on the hospital with its policy. As far as I understand, the hospital primarily exists to serve the people of Ridgecrest and our neighboring smaller cities, as well as indirectly to serve the Navy. And I believe that those two stakeholders should have a voice for how essentially service for them is being operated. I also agree with the mayor's sentiment that it may not be appropriate for the city government to directly lay a hand on the rudder of how the hospital is being run. But seeing as the hospital took Navy money last year, I think there is some argument that they are not a totally independent, regular private entity, but in fact tied to this community at a deeper level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Any other persons wishing?
Yes, Council, Mike Neal. So I appreciate what I've heard said so far, but let's not let the public not be fully informed about upcoming events. They had the meeting last week or week before last in Bakersfield, no less. You know, should have been over here, but it was in Bakersfield. And there's a process that this follows, and I've been communicating with the LAFCO guys, and they've been very straightforward and, you know, helpful in giving information. I have a flow chart on my computer that basically says at this upcoming meeting on October the 14th, if they do not get 25% or more protest votes against this, the annexation will happen, period. So 2 weeks from now, or less than 2 weeks from now, if there's not enough people informed about this, who have, you know, you get this envelope and it just says Kern LAFCO on the return address, and most people are going to go, what's that? I don't know those guys. Probably, you know, as we well know from experience, or at least I do, most of those get tossed in the trash, you know. It's going to take, according to their numbers, over 6,000 people saying, no, I don't want this. Otherwise, the annexation into the East Kern Healthcare District is going to happen, period. That's what's going to happen. If it doesn't, then they do it. It's just is really convoluted. They have another election, which is also a protest vote. And protest votes, for those who don't understand, your opinion is assumed to be yes on the issue. And unless you send a protest letter and say no, then it stays that way. And so 50% at the very last, if this upcoming one doesn't get at least 6,000 plus saying no, it's going to happen. Even if that happens, they're going to do another one. So there's two shots at pushing this through on us. So that's just the facts of the matter. And, you know, the meeting, well, you'll get information, but by the time the meeting has happened, it's a done deal. They've got the votes they're going to get, and that's it. You're not going to, you know, that room won't even hold enough people to push a vote one way or the other. So it's just kind of a dog and pony show as far as I'm concerned, but that's what it is. So I'm telling people, if you don't like this idea and you're even aware of it, you need to get your letter in and say, no, I don't want this. There's lots of reasons not to want this. And I got 2.5 minutes, and I can't even touch on what I need to say about this. But what I'm going to say is the last informational meetings outside of the town hall were over 16 months ago in Ridgecrest. That's a long time, and everybody forgets. And now all of a sudden you get this letter, which most people are going to ignore, saying we're going to have a protest meeting, you need to send your letter in, and now the ball's rolling. And it's a train coming down the track, and, you know, biggest likelihood is we'll be annexed into East Kern Healthcare District. Now, if not, I mean, it'd be really good to see that happen, because it's not time for that to happen right now. The people in this valley have not been informed over enough of a period of time to understand it. It took me a week digging into it to just get somewhat educated. Interestingly enough, I found out, talking to the chairman of the board of the hospital, that even if the annexation happens, the hospital isn't going to want to be part of the district right off the bat. They're going to wait and weigh their options. So they want us pulled into the district, which is, by law, a taxing entity. And I think it's a 218, which is hard to, that's hard to prevent a tax from being pushed forward, not a 2/3 vote. And did the hospital, they want it to happen because they think it'll happen faster. They've been told that if they try to create their own district, it'll take 5 years, 12 years. Those numbers were thrown up at the last meeting in Bakersfield. We need to get the foundation of this right. And the only right way to do it is we have our own healthcare district up in this north part of East Kern. It's Ridgecrest centric, tuned to Ridgecrest wants and needs, and that the hospital has already commits before that even happens that they're going to change that to a entity that's run by an elected board. So we have a voice in what the hospital does and says, because we could be on the hook for money. And that's the only way to get this right. So this annexation needs to fail, as far as I'm concerned, and we need to go back to approaching it from the right direction and going at it the right way.
Actually, if you can stay up there, I have 3 questions, or 3 statements, I guess. One of your statements was you didn't understand why LAFCO was held in Bakersfield. It's held there for every issue that LAFCO has. It's at the Kern Council of Government location. It doesn't matter the community that has a proposal for it. It's held there. Like they're not going to relocate the meeting every month to the
Well,
communities that are affected by
I
that.
could understand that. But that made me attend it by Zoom, by virtue of which I was cut out of commenting because I was on Zoom. It was easy to block me off.
And if you remember,
I had to
I was the
complain
one,
about that.
I told the councilman that they gave someone else a chance, so that we needed to let you and Mr. Porter have your say.
Right. I appreciate that.
The second thing, the chairman's statement, I talked with a member of the board, who I assume is the chairman of the board, and he absolutely refuted that he said that to you. Now, I have no clue what was said. All I know was his words were, what Mike Neal said in that meeting, I never said to him. So,
Okay.
that's between you and him.
Yeah.
The last thing, I'm sorry, I either have ADHD or ADD, but you have a flashing red light on you. Like, does anyone else see that, or am I, okay.
Oh, my phone going low on battery again.
Oh, okay. All right, because I just thought that I was going mental.
Better turn it around so it doesn't spook people.
Yeah, so, because I was trying to watch, and then I just, sorry, but,
Oh, so that's it?
yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I was just completely blinded by the light. I'm a child.
Hey, Holly.
Hey, Holly Staub, resident of the city. Joined into the conversation late tonight, so I will start with that. And usually I don't like getting up here without an idea for how to fix something, because I don't have that. But I did want to throw in my support for what Councilman Blades is saying. I don't hear his proposal as saying the city's going to take over the hospital. I don't think that's at all what's being meant. And I think it is important that we have more involvement. I think it's very clear that as a community, we don't know what's going on, and we don't understand what's going on, and we don't understand the options. But as was shared, I think the general consensus is that we're not happy with the services being provided and would love to see them turned around for the better. So that's all I wanted to say, was just throw some support behind that line of thinking. And I don't see it as an infringement on a private entity. I understand that concern. If we were talking about a restaurant in town or a store in town, absolutely. But I think with a hospital, something that we need the services to continue as a community, I think it's important to have involvement from people who understand that as our city, so.
So Holly, again, I agree with you. I'm just saying that if we're asking a private entity to allow us to have a non-voting member president of the board, I just think that we need to be aware that they can say no.
They can, and I mean, I'm not going to pretend to understand the hospital's, internal politics at all, but maybe the answer is we need to encourage community members to show up at their board meetings. I don't know. I don't even know if that's an option, but just.
I don't even think
No,
that they're
I
public.
think it's important that the community members speak to their board. And I
Right.
think it's important that the community is echoing the same message.
Yeah, because I can tell you guys what I think they should do all you want, but as we've made clear, we're not in charge.
Yeah.
Nope.
But I think this board has the the prowess in town to have that influence on the community and drive that kind of involvement and hopefully education, change, all for the better.
Yeah.
So,
Okay,
that's all.
thank you. Paula.
Thank you for having the discussion.
No, absolutely. Any other members of the public wish to comment?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we have someone on the phone line. Caller, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mary Ash, and I called to make a comment about the hospital district.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yep, you're on the line. Can you hear us?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
okay. I did a quick read about hospital districts the other day. In fact, I just closed the tab today. But from what I understood, state law requires that a hospital district has a publicly elected board to serve because they are receiving tax monies, public funding, and it's no longer a private entity.
So that is correct, but there will be the East Kern Healthcare District Board, and what we're talking about is the hospital board, which are two
Right.
different entities.
But if they're receiving public monies, i.e. our property taxes, we should be electing the board to represent us because they're receiving public funds. It's like City Hall. You receive property taxes and public funding to run City Hall, and the same should go for the hospital.
Yeah, so there will be 2 elected positions in 2026 for the East Kern Healthcare District Board, and then 3 in 2028?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep, that's as I
So
understand it as
those,
well.
those are the avenues that we do have for citizen representation on that board.
And how will that affect Ridgecrest Hospital? Will it continue to have its private board members?
Well, that's part of the negotiation that the healthcare district and the hospital are going to undergo if the annexation, SOI and MSR get passed by the public.
Well, I would suggest that we make that perfectly clear because the current board does not seem to be serving our community well. We need to open that board up to elected officials so we have people from the community giving their input. It's as simple as that.
All right, thank you very much. You still have 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Is there anything else you wish to say?
No, I thank you for listening and for helping to clarify that, but I wanted to make sure it was understood. We need to go to publicly elected representatives if we're going to be requiring residents to pay for that hospital. And thank you for your time. Good evening.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too. All right. Any other public comments? Persons wishing to be heard? Is there a,
No, just
a
a
discussion?
discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we had a pretty good discussion.
Okay.
I just want to add, Mayor, just in doing just a little brief research while we're sitting here, but more than half of the rural hospitals are solvent. And so granted, it's flip a coin almost, they're close. But there's a lot of strategies for maintaining solvency, and I think the expectations is that the citizens of this valley that receive health care, they want good quality health care. That's the expectation. And the second expectation would be what changes are going to occur from the hospital to facilitate these changes to flip them over to the other side and join the other more than half of the rural hospitals that are solvent.
I think another impediment currently is that our hospital is private. I know that affects their reimbursement rate. And so some of the conversations and research that I've done that it ebbs and flows within this state when it's good to be private and when it's more beneficial to not be private. And I think the hospital administration understands that it's probably not the best to be private right now, and so being a district hospital is a little bit more beneficial due to the reimbursement rate for those district hospitals. So I see this as an attempt for them to try to get to the same.
Right, because it does it lists out a whole, several strategies for maintaining solvency, and some fall within some of this discussion tonight. One, joining a larger institution getting grants. But with that, you could bring in more revenue, but if you don't make the changes for the long term, to stay in that solvent side of things, then it's at loss.
Yeah,
Right?
and-
And I don't think anybody likes to entertain the thought of taxes and be, taxed and then still not have a system that's operational. That would be even a worse quagmire than what we're discussing now. And I don't think people are fully aware of it. I think it's correct that the average person out there doesn't know we don't know it. That's why we're having this discussion. And I don't think the average person out there is understanding of the in-depth issues that are part of it.
Yeah, and I think part of the issue that has happened is that 2019, when the earthquake hit, right, the hospital, being a private entity, did not get any federal grants to help rebuild anything that was damaged. So they took losses. They lost services. Surgeries went down. And so at that moment, working with a deficit, right, they're just they've been trying to play catch up. And unfortunately, that was part of the reason why the OB was shut down, was because they had to find some way to keep the
I wish we
hospital.
could blame it all on COVID, but the issues that are brought us to this point today have been longstanding for decades or longer, decades. And I don't want to discuss it right now, but you can do your own history and you can see where these issues have plagued hospitals for a very long time. And anyone that was in the business of running a hospital would be wanting to look at what are these issues that's coming down the pike at us right now. What can we be doing to change, to try to combat this, to fix it? But instead, we sit here today in a bit of a mess.
Any other comments?
No, I just wanted to leave it with, I wanted to turn this around to a positive note. I honestly think that, I truly believe that the hospital being the district, the annexation, I think it's a good thing. I think that the community having insight and understanding and more knowledge into what the hospital is doing is great. And I'm not even criticizing what's currently happening, but what I am saying is that people don't know and they need to know. I think that there are, like you say, when we have issues with federal funding and state funding going to rural hospitals, that's a problem. I think we're currently sitting in a government shutdown right now, and those exact things are being discussed and debated about funding going to hospitals. So while that's above above my pay grade, I'm happy to say that. What I am saying is that I can see a future. Every decision I make on this dais and every time I have a conversation with somebody, I try to make it as if I'm looking back 20 years. Am I going to be proud of what I did and proud of what I said? And I've made some mistakes, but I can tell you that I don't want to look back in 20 years and see that, you know what, we could have had the conversations, we could have forced the meetings, we could have sat down in somebody's office and we could have asked for this, and it would have made things more successful. And that's really all I'm asking for.
All right, next we have ordinance. I assume it's item number 5. Yep. Introduction and first reading of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest amending Article 3 of the Ridgecrest Municipal Code to provide regulations of illegal fireworks and assess liability for illegal use on the property owners.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, council members. This item was before you, I believe, at the last meeting for discussion and direction. The ordinance is designed to prohibit use of dangerous fireworks as defined by state law. That does not include safe and sane fireworks, which are not encompassed in this ordinance. The ordinance also would assist law enforcement in both prevention and potentially apprehension of enforcement of these prohibitions. Social host ordinance holds the property owner or someone who is in control of the property responsible for what happens on that property. This usually eliminates the problem created when everybody scatters after the stuff goes off, and it's difficult to pinpoint who is to be fined, who is responsible. The overall goal of this ordinance is obviously fire safety. It is we want to avoid having these dangerous rockets go off and land on somebody's roof or land in an area that is combustible and start and spread fires. The draft ordinance that was presented to the council at the last meeting was acceptable to the council. We're here for the introduction, first reading, and scheduling a second reading adoption for the next meeting. I'll turn it over to the chief. He most obviously will have something else to add because I didn't cover everything. And also, we're both available, all of us are available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Council, for having us for the second time for this issue. We did pull some data just for reference with regard to fireworks calls. In 2023 and 24, we had in each year respectively calls for service for fireworks, 106 calls. Calls for service for fires that we don't know if they're related to fireworks or not, we got 99 of those. There were some questions about the follow-up investigations, how many of those fires were associated directly with fireworks, and we really don't have a way to know. The Kern County Fire Department provides arson investigation services. We wouldn't necessarily determine this as an arson. I don't believe the people launching fireworks intend to light anybody's house on fire, which is a requirement for an arson claim. Those are accidents. We don't have the data on how many of those may have been related to fireworks. That data is just not available to us. So I could, do you have any data on how many of the fires last year might have been? We have our friends from the Kern County Fire Department here. Were you guys able to, I know I got a message that the data may not have been available. Do you know if they were able to put something together?
We put in a request to look at the last 4 to 5 years as far as for data, as far as response to within the city and the surrounding areas, and then because of that, we have not yet received that data.
Great, thank you. That was the Kern County Fire Department. They don't have a microphone, but they have requested the information from the folks that control that data. That data is not yet available. We hope to have that data in time for the second reading, so we can provide that information depending upon what's available. As the city attorney said, we're happy to take any questions that people might still have.
If I may add something, Martin, you mentioned that the second reading was going to be at the next meeting. It is not. It will be at the November 5th meeting. Due to posting requirements, I didn't get it in time with the Daily Independent, so it's going to have to miss a meeting. The second reading will come back November 5th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Thank you, Rick. Okay. So, open for questions. So I have a question on, I'm not against trying to have an ordinance for, illegal fireworks, but some of the description of, I'm going to start with the host. What I have concern with, I'm going to put it in layman's terms first, is the portion where the host says if you own property and someone is setting off fireworks on that property, and that makes you liable for that person's actions. In the event of, open space, if you have a business in town, or if it's, and someone rolls up and because I personally have seen some folks roll around and shoot fireworks off from different locations during the fireworks, so they don't get caught. But if they, go to a business in town and shoot off fireworks, I can't see, it's not reasonable, I can't see anywhere, I can't wrap my head around that business owner or that property owner being liable for the illegal action of somebody who's committed, a break of the law. It's not reasonable for business owners and property owners that may have other property to go around and be able to police against this type of activity. The other part that I have a problem with the wording is, let me find it here. Okay, so it's item F. A host who permits or fails to prevent any discharge of dangerous fireworks on property under their possession or control, or an adjacent public or private street or sidewalk, shall be deemed to have actual constructive knowledge that dangerous fireworks have been discharged if the host has not taken all the reasonable steps to prevent the discharge of dangerous fireworks. So if it's a cul-de-sac, or if there's a street and somebody's rolled in from a block over, they say, I like this street, and they are setting fireworks off in the middle of the street. is the residence on each side of that? Or if the person is closer to the residence that's on the right-hand side, is that residence liable because somebody is setting off fireworks in the street adjacent to their house? And again, I can't see where that would be reasonable or acceptable, because again, if somebody's doing an illegal act and you catch them in the act of shooting off the fireworks, I'm all for that. That's their mistake. They can pay for it. But what I have is an issue with the stepping into the rights of individuals who is it that person's responsibility to call the police to report them? And if they don't, then are they liable? That's how I'm reading this, and I'm going, well, wait, I'm a layman in the law area, but yet I'm seeing some issues here that could be, I think, a problem.
Thank you. That's a very good question. The issue comes down to establishing probable cause to issue the citation in the first place. The situations that you describe are generally not how this has been enforced in other areas. I do have experience with a similar ordinance in the city from which I came before I came to Ridgecrest. And it's incumbent upon the officer who plans to issue the citation to definitively determine that a person is associated with a resident. So for example, and the officer still has to determine where the illegal fireworks are being launched from and make an association from the person to the structure. Generally speaking, these occur at houses. I don't know of a situation where it's been, the Walmart parking lot and we try to give Walmart a citation. These are generally private homes. And what the officers observe is they see it launched, say from a backyard, and we can determine it came from that backyard. The person in the house should reasonably know that illegal fireworks are being launched from their backyard. Personally, when I've enforced a similar ordinance, the first thing I do is I go talk to the homeowner and say, who launched the firework? Have them come out. We'll deal with them directly for the possession and launching of the firework under the Health and Safety Code. That's the first option is, hey, who's doing this? It needs to stop and we want to talk to the responsible person. If not, that's where these social host ordinances come in to help us deter this kind of behavior before we have a catastrophic event that costs somebody property or life. So it still requires the officer to develop probable cause to issue the citation. So somebody driving into a parking lot, a cul-de-sac, and launching a firework, there's no direct association with the home. We wouldn't be able to issue a citation because probable cause would not exist. Same with a parking lot. There's no way we could show that the person who owns the O'Reilly Auto Parts reasonably could have known this was occurring. Therefore, based on the verbiage in the ordinance, we would lack probable cause to issue the citation. Does that satisfactorily answer your question?
It does, and reading this in two different versions, my first version is that's how I interpret it. Reading it in a little more, blinders on, I see it as having the wordage in there that the adjacent sidewalk or the street is now part of the properties.
Correct, because again, I'll use my personal experience. People generally launch these off from the middle of the street. The most common place to launch aerial firework is from the middle of the street. Generally from a social gathering at a house right there, because people don't go down the block to light it off. They just do it right out in the street, and they go right back to the safe haven of that place. Again, if we see somebody actually light it and launch it, we'll try to address that person with the Health and Safety Code. This is simply giving us a way to say, hey, you can't just flee into a house where there's a big party, because what you're saying is, now the homeowner can be responsible for that behavior. It's a way to try to discourage this behavior in the city before we have a catastrophic event. So the situations you describe, again, would lack probable cause to issue a citation.
If I may?
Please do.
The page 2, subsection C, as in Charlie. I've read this since these words may have eventually become law. I need subsection C on page 2 of 6 to make some sense. There's either a verb or a noun missing that would turn it into a couple of complete sentences, or at least one. It needs to be rewritten so it makes some sense. I enjoy the phrase that I see several places in this, rebuttable presumption.
Can you go back to the subsection C and tell us what it was?
Yes. I'll read it.
Okay.
The imposition of fines related to, quote, dangerous fireworks, unquote, under this chapter shall be limited to hosts who possess, sell, use, and/or display, or allows, or fails to prevent others from the same, or the seizure of 25 pounds or less of such dangerous fireworks. Period. Did that settle out as a sentence, everybody?
In the legalese, it does. In interpreting the vehicle code and penal code and health and safety code for years, this is common language that's generated by the legal community. And in fact, this language is taken straight out of the, I believe, the assembly bill that allowed this social host ordinance to exist. These are the things that when cops have to interpret, this is what we do all the time.
I thank you. I'm prepared to believe that. Right now at home, I'm plowing through Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, if you can believe such a thing. What does a rebuttable presumption mean, please?
Rebuttable presumption?
Yeah, it
It's-
exists in subsection H, page 3.
Oh, okay.
Right in the
I
middle.
didn't see-
We gotta get
Rebuttal
to the-
presumption is a presumption that can be rebutted by evidence or by facts or by circumstances.
So for example, if we issue a citation, you have the opportunity to have a hearing where you can provide evidence or supporting facts that suggest that, in fact, the elements of the crime were not met. So you get to rebut the charges. You have a right to do so.
I thank you.
You're welcome.
I do need a couple of clarifications. Going back to C on page 2, it says seizure of 25 pounds or less. So what if a person has more than 25 pounds?
So that's out of the health and safety code. That's with the delineation between a felony and a misdemeanor for possession of actual explosives.
So that's like a public offense, it falls under.
Correct, that would be under the health and safety
We
code.
can't punish, we can't enforce
The
felonies.
city
Yeah.
doesn't have the ability, because it's a felony, to issue a citation and do something about that. If we find somebody who possesses 25 pounds or more, that would be a felony and they would be arrested. And that case would go to the district attorney's office, whereas the municipal code would come to the city for enforcement,
So,
prosecution.
Yeah, this is
the
covered under
hypo-
the health, this is covered under a different section of the health and safety code.
so do we weigh, I mean, to know if it is 25 pounds?
Yes,
or-
in situations where weight is a factor, whether it's drugs, illegal explosives, and we're allowed to weigh them in their current packaging. So the packaging, everything counts. If it's over 25, it would be a felony. Less than that, it would be a misdemeanor. No different than when we talk about, the weight of, drugs, for example.
So, and what do we do with the fireworks that we seize? We send it to the,
We have to give them to either the bomb squad or the fire department for disposal. We don't have on-site fire-resistant storage for them. We can't put them in our property room, because then we might not have a property room. And then I have to come back and ask for a budget augmentation for a new one, so.
thank you. And going to item B, as Councilman Gorman said, completion of statement. If you read, the issuance of citation imposing administrative fines may be performed at the discretion of the officials of the city authorized hereunder. So where are they hereunder?
It's defined in another part of the municipal code that allows the city manager to define who has the authority to administer administrative citations within the city.
So do we need need to say that here, or?
It's referenced in a section later on where it says, it references the section there later on that shows who has the authority.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't have any in-depth, detailed questions about the ordinance itself, but we gave it a good read-through and a good talk-through last time. But if people weren't watching, or they're not at this meeting right now, I think one thing, and Councilman Heyman, you were right to bring it up. People, I think if I was in the public, what I would be concerned about, am I now going to get a ticket just because somebody's doing this right on my property or around me? Right, that's very possible. Okay. But when it comes to 4th of July, are my kids going to be able to have fireworks in the street and walk around with sparklers? Is this going to get, are we going to get draconian? Are things going to get, right, are the police going to go around just giving everybody tickets? People, I think it's, and Chief, I think the public wants to hear from you.
I think that's a fair question.
Yeah.
No, this is America. I understand that. However, there has to be a balance between what's safe for the community and what's not. The Health and Safety Code has defined that for us. So we're not here to debate whether or not aerial explosives are legal or not legal. That's been determined. Safe and sane fireworks, on the other hand, those sold at the booths used for fundraisers around town, as clearly denoted in the ordinance, are not affected by this because they are determined safe and sane by the fire marshal, who says that they're safe when used properly. But this does not apply in any way to safe and sane fireworks. We want people to please go buy as much of those as you can because those are fundraisers for local entities. So we want people to go out and please use those, not the aerial fireworks that create a danger to the community. And that's really the thrust behind the ordinance is, let's try to create a small deterrent to make it so maybe people don't have people over that do these. As I stated at the last meeting, if I recall correctly, I responded to a fire caused by fireworks in my career. 10 homes were lost just in that afternoon. It was windy and landed in a dry field. The wind blew it right into a series of houses. We lost 10 homes that day. So what I would offer is we can do this and try to be proactive and create a deterrent today, or a couple of meetings after we have a significant loss of life or property. We'll probably do it then, but it will have been too late to at least say, hey, we're trying to take the right steps to protect our community from an event like that. And that's the intent behind pushing this ordinance forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so I loved Councilman Heyman's hypothetical. Brought me back to some of my pre-law classes that I was taking, so I want to venture into another one, okay? It's anecdotal. 2 years ago, there was an individual in a truck driving up College Heights, setting off fireworks from the truck, which was fine to me as I'm sitting in my backyard watching, and I'm like, oh, cool. Oh, it's getting closer. Oh, they just launched one right next to my house. How would the police officers try to interdict someone like that?
I mean, we drive around and try to find them. Well, how it applies to this ordinance.
Listen, you gave him a very detailed answer.
I'll try to be more eloquent.
Like,
So, Mr. Mayor, that's a very good question. I'm grateful that you've offered it to me.
Thank you.
To
Thank you,
provide
sir.
a response.
No, keep it going.
What I will say is, we would use the resources available at the time to try to track down the vehicle. The social host ordinance wouldn't apply to that situation because, again, we have to develop probable cause to issue a citation for anything or make an arrest. This is very specific to properties where it's reasonable to believe that the owner would know, or a person responsible for the house, because rentals and things of that nature. We still have to prove that, and then they have the right of rebuttal. They get to come and have a hearing and say, hey, there's no way I could have known because this guy was just driving up College Heights and my backyard backs up to it. Why would you issue a citation? Now, I like to think that myself or other leadership within the police department would catch something like that early on in reading a report that maybe this was misapplied. Cops make mistakes, but we can correct those. You know, I'm not saying our officers are out there being perfect all the time. We're learning, we're trying to be as good as we can be, but we're not infallible.
I
So-
guess the second question I was going to get to was that with this social host type of, it seems like a deterrent, right? That if we apply this, it becomes a deterrent, and then we have a mitigation of fireworks being launched in the air anyway. With that, then are we expecting our community to be more of a watcher and an alerter to the police to let them know when illegal fireworks are being set off in
That is-
their vicinity?
That's an exceptional follow-up question, and I continue to appreciate them.
God, you know what? Let's just stop now. Like, I feel good.
Okay. Yeah, we want people to call. They call anyway. We have hundreds of documented calls where people are calling anyway, but we don't always see the person holding or lighting off the dangerous explosive device. This gives us the ability to say, just like I said, hey, tell whoever just lit that to come back out here, because we were down the street, we watched it. We watched them light it and run to your house. You can have them come out, and we're happy to issue them a health and safety code violation, or you are the social host by definition, we can issue you administrative citation, and maybe you guys can split the tab.
How much?
Thank you. That is a fantastic response.
Thank you, sir.
How much is that first citation?
It's $1,000 each time, which is, I think Kern County starts out at, isn't it 1,500, 2,000, 2,500? So the Kern County Fire Department, the Kern County has an ordinance as well. Theirs is $1,500 for the first violation. If you get another violation within 5 years, it's $2,000. Future violations are $2,500 for perspective.
All right, any other council comments? Are there any public comments?
Yes, Mike Neal. It was stated earlier that there were 100-plus reports of supposed illegal fireworks in 2023, I believe, something like that. I asked for reports of fireworks from December 2023 to August 2025, and I was told there were actually more than that, 276 illegal fireworks reports. So just so you know, I'm being straightforward about this. That's what I got. The problem is, as has been stated, we literally have no idea how many of those incidents reported. It resulted in a fire. The only fire that's ever been known in over 40 years I've been here in this valley was the one last summer that it was basically the city's fault. Whoever was popping out the fireworks at the fairgrounds. And that's it. So you've got a problem you're chasing here that you haven't documented is actually there. So I have a problem with that. We know we have fireworks laws, and they're just trying to make it easier to make people guilty, basically. So find somebody that they can find. Deterrent is always we want to nail you so that you and everybody you know finds out about it, and they don't want it to happen to them. And, kind of put the fear of God in everybody about that particular issue. I have a problem with that. And the other one is sections of the code here that have already been read. Section 6.8, paragraph F, G, and H. And this use of rebuttable presumption, and that's in paragraph G of section 6.8, basically says there's a presumption that the owner of the property that they think the fireworks have been launched from is guilty. Now, a rebuttable presumption, I looked it up, says is taken to be true unless it is contested and disproved by evidence satisfying the standard of proof. Basically means you're guilty until proven innocent. They're just presuming that, and you got it, so, and that seems like that's like the opposite, twisted around, wrong way to go about anything. I thought you were only guilty until you were proven guilty, and you were innocent until then. This doesn't say that, I
Mike,
don't
do
believe.
you mind if the chief asks you, or
So,
provides clarification?
with regard
Stop
to
the clock on me.
with regard to, I believe you're reading section G.
G, yeah.
What that is specifically referring to is, let's say, for example, you own a rental, and for some reason, the citation is issued to you as the homeowner. You're able to come in and say, well, wait a second, that's my rental. These are the people renting it. You're able to rebut the fact that you're not actually there and responsible at that time because you have a renter or a leasee.
And another way that this works also, Mayor, is that's why the county records are being used, the tax rolls. Say I own a house and I sell it. Sell it on June 30th. New buyer on July 4th sets off a bunch of fireworks. We look it up, Kazanowicz owns the house. There's a rebuttal presumption that I'm the property owner at the time of this happened, because the county can't catch up to the sale and the transaction. So that's another reason why that is in there.
I also want to make a point that the city wasn't at fault for the fireworks at the fairgrounds.
Well, somebody was running the fireworks show. Yeah, that's why I kind of qualified it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, the other paragraph, and this falls back to provable guilt, I guess, and who's presumed with this rebuttable presumption approach to be guilty or not. Paragraph 8 says it's the duty of any host to take reasonable steps to prevent the discharge of dangerous fireworks. Note this, on the host's property or on an adjacent public or private street or sidewalk. So I live on a cul-de-sac. Now, you know, if a couple of big brutes go out there and they start popping off fireworks in the middle of the cul-de-sac, this says, I gotta go out there and police them and say, hey, cut it out, I'm gonna report you. Or they could say, well, your house is adjacent to that street. So all you guys in the cul-de-sac, I mean, let's just get a little bit, you know, extreme here. All you guys in cul-de-sac are guilty. This law literally says that. If somebody does this action on the street, close to your house, you can be presumed to be guilty for it. That's wrong. And I think that this should be tabled and this language cleared up. We've got the means to prove who did it. The chief told us he had 2 drones. He can pop those up 400 feet in the air, and I believe we were told you could read anything you want to look at within a mile radius of that. So you got position, you got height, you got angle. You know where that property is. You can easily go after the people and probably identify the user before you even head that direction. So we have the means to deal with this without making citizens and property owners the fireworks police.
Did you hear Councilman Hayman's question and the answer by the chief on exactly what you had proposed?
I heard that, but I think the actual language is too broad. The problem is you got to chain the government down itself so that it doesn't get loose and out of control. We don't know how long our Constitution 11 chief is going to be around. We don't know the circumstances that some local police officer who might be having a bad day might decide to go after somebody because he's already chased down 8 of these situations and he's tired of it. You know, I mean, you got to make it hard to convict people so that when you convict them of it and fine them, $1,000 is not a small deal. Well, that's a big deal to a lot of people. Before you do that, you've got good, clear reason to go after and nail that person.
All right. Thank you very much. Sir?
Real quick, my name is Vince LePerry, and I own 13 rentals throughout this country. Now, you guys have talked about that, and that I'm worried about. I think you should look at the property owner's terminology there. I'm just saying, I got 13 people, and they're individual houses. They're in neighborhoods, single wides, and that kind of thing. Just be careful, because I seem to get, I could be responsible for a lot of things. As a landlord, it's the worst job in the world. It's the absolute worst. You have to be everybody's parent. You got to tell people to pick up their dog shit, all kinds of stuff. So I worry about the property owners thing. Just, you could look up my property, you could see my company, and now you could hit my company, and even though the address is here in Ridgecrest and it's my house, just be careful with that. That's all.
If I'm,
You're doing a great job, Chief, and your guys are great.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'll pass that along.
if I may,
very
sir, just, and you don't even have to stand up there if you don't want to. I was just going to say, are you happy, are you okay with the response that the chief gave earlier with what that looks like when they do respond to these
I think it should be
scenarios?
more of a, get the person that's doing it. I think the word, the property owner's language there is kind of tough. And I get the part where it's
Well,
just
actually,
a house in a backyard.
I think that's fair. I guess let's further define. So let me ask a quick question, Chief, and I guess this occurred to me just now. Somebody's renting a property, but somebody is there that is not renting the property. Is that also, would you also then the probable cause portion be to whoever the renter is, not necessarily the property owner?
That's correct. That's clearly stated in the ordinance that it's the person responsible for. Therefore, like the example we gave earlier, let's say you receive a citation because we mail it. Everybody went in the house, we're not going to kick your door in for this, it's an administrative citation. We send you a notice for one of your rentals. What you get to say is, hang on a second.
Whoa.
This person is renting it. It's their responsibility because they have dominion and control over that property at the time of the violation. Therefore, you have no exposure to have to pay it.
Fantastic. That's okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other members of the public wish to comment that are here? All right, we'll move on to the phone. Caller, if you can hear me, you can go.
I know that one.
Caller, if you can hear us, you can go. I'm telling you, I feel like a radio DJ.
Kevin, can you tell if they're still on the line? He said 1 minute,
1 minute. Oh, okay. I thought that.
or
was
1
up.
second, or something while he's. Nobody's there. I just heard a dial tone.
We'll give him a second to call back. Caller, if you called in and lost us, please call back so we can take your comment. Caller, no, 1 second. No. It's hard for me to see the hand signs because, yeah, 'cause- no. Anyone know a good joke? Skip, I'm looking at you. I know you've got tons of them.
Yeah, the phone just rang.
Oh, okay.
Microphone's off.
All right, caller, go ahead.
Hi, Mary Ash again.
Hi,
Can you
Mary.
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. It's going to be real easy. How do you plan to collect evidence and enforce it if this ordinance is passed?
Chief?
Violations will be based on officers developing probable cause.
And how do you plan on determining probable cause?
The same as with any other crime, we would have to have visual observation that the violation occurred and to be able to associate it with the residence and reasonably identify the person responsible for that residence or structure.
Okay, I can understand on the 4th of July, you'll probably have officers out. What happens if something happens on a different day? I know January,
At any time of the year, if we get reports of aerial fireworks, our goal is to try to determine first who is actually launching the aerial fireworks that are dangerous.
okay.
If we can't
So
do
would
that,
you
oh,
have
I'm sorry.
Would you have to have a peace officer observe the fireworks being
Most,
set off?
most often it will be,
Or-
go ahead.
That's okay, I'm getting some feedback. Anyway, would the officer have to actually observe the incident occurring, or would you be willing to accept calls from people who are calling for help?
It would require the officer to observe the violation for an administrative violation. Excuse me, an administrative citation.
Okay, and so the question is, how are you going to do that throughout the year?
Our goal would be to send officers to the area. My experience is that people who launch aerial fireworks generally don't just launch one. That doesn't make a
Okay.
show. So our goal would be to get to the neighborhood as quickly as we could and try to identify, again, first of all, who might be the actual person engaging in the illegal behavior. And if not,
Okay,
we would use this as a social host ordinance to identify the person responsible for allowing that to occur if all of the elements as outlined in the ordinance are met.
okay, thank you, and I really appreciate this because I was lucky, my house didn't catch fire, but it was reported on Pulse Point that it had, and there was a neighbor up the street, their fence caught fire because somebody set off, and they were illegal fireworks. But the other problem, I've had a neighbor that likes to send off fireworks throughout the year, and if you have kids or pets, that can be upsetting. So I'm glad that you're working on this ordinance, and I hope it's approved.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your question.
Thank you,
Thank
Mary.
you. Take care. Bye-bye.
I also want to add, veterans tend to highly dislike the loud noises. Triggers PTSD for them as well. So, all right. Any other persons wishing to comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion to waive the reading in full of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest amending Article 3 of the Ridgecrest Municipal Code to provide regulations of illegal fireworks and assesses liability for illegal use on the property owners?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, next, do I have a motion to introduce by title only an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest amending Article 3 of the Ridgecrest Municipal Code to provide regulations of illegal fireworks and assesses liability for illegal use on the property owners?
So moved.
Do I have
Second.
a motion and second?
Please vote. 5 ayes, motion carries, and just as a reminder, the second reading will be the 5th of November.
Remember.
Just in case anybody wants to make comments.
All right, next we get into committee reports. The Economic Development Committee, their next meeting is October 6th in City Hall Conference Room B on the first floor. The Finance Committee, their next meeting will be October 14th in City Hall Conference Room B on the first floor. The Economic Development Committee will be meeting at 5:15. The Finance Committee will be meeting at 5:30. The Infrastructure Committee met on September 25th. And what we had discussions, we had some public comments about some waste management issues of individuals getting cited for putting the wrong thing in their trash, and they were not the one responsible. And so that was taken to Waste Management. There was a request for increased patrol around Chelsea, Drummond, and China Lake at the end of school day. There was also hope for motorized bikes, scooters, and skateboards to be surveilled a little bit better because they're not following traffic laws and some are driving the sidewalk with no helmets. Um, let's see, and so some of our discussion items, there's gonna be a four-way stop at Inyo and Graf. It didn't warrant a four-way stop per volume, but a stop is warranted for exigent circumstances. Also for Mahan and Upjohn, the same thing. That should be happening in December. The PMG radar on Valerie Street, it got moved and it's getting results, to getting drivers to slow down around Valerie. And there was a discussion of GPS software. It's not done yet, and hopefully at the next meeting, Travis Reed will provide an update. So that was the infrastructure committee. Any questions, comments? Cool. Next, we have Parks, Rec, and Quality of Life Committee. The next meeting is October 7th here in City Hall Council Chambers at 5:30. Next, we have other committees, boards, or commissions. Anyone have anything?
Just a brief, we are headed to the League of California Cities next week, and we will be there to learn and champion.
Skip gets to vote, right?
Skip gets to vote.
You get to vote at the
Yes.
League of Cities.
That's right.
Yep.
Hopefully, we'll have a quorum.
That's the spirit. I was at LAFCO. Nothing happened. That's a joke. We passed the SOI, MSR, and annexation after a lengthy debate. I was happy to see the members of our community that decided to show up and to call in. I appreciated their input and it informed our discussion. Also, I gained a whole new appreciation for the work that Narissa does and the Parks and Rec, because I found out that the city of McFarland, their Parks and Rec is not part of their city. They are an entirely other entity. And I am happy that I don't live in McFarland because they came out loud and proud, and there was a lot discussed there. And it got heated, and it was one of those uncomfortable situations that I enjoy watching and not being a part of. I was very happy that I was not a part of that. But I assume it will continue into the next meeting as well. Any other committees, boards, or commissions? No? Moving on to the city manager report.
Yes, I have a couple things to report on. First of all, we extended the bid period for the new Penny Pool Complex. The new date for bid opens will be October 16th at 11 a.m. at the city clerk's office. We had 6 contractors that had asked us to extend the bid time frame because they had a significant number of sub-proposals that they hadn't gotten back yet. It was a benefit to the city to extend that. Obviously, we want the contractors to sharpen their pencils to give us the best bid possible, so we extended it for the benefit of the city in hopes that we get back comprehensive bids that are at the best possible price. Also, the new softball field fences are nearly completed at the Leroy Jackson Complex. If you have time, you should stop by, take a look at them. I think it's a great addition to our fields in support of the young ladies that play out there, as well as the adult league. Lastly, Chief Issett and I met with the new presiding judge, Judge John Lua, last week to discuss the new Ridgecrest Courthouse. It was a productive meeting. It was pleasant. The judges, although we've had assurances from the Judicial Council that our 2 courtrooms here in Ridgecrest are going to remain open. There's also a concern about getting us back on the list because we were quite high on needing a new facility due to the condition of the 2 courtrooms as well as the features surrounding them. The judge is concerned about making sure that the new Mojave Court is underway before they consider the new Ridgecrest Courthouse. He is willing to consider that next April, so we have on our calendar to reach out to the judge then. And I'm fairly certain we're going to get back on the list. It's just, and of course, unfortunately, the way things had occurred, if we do get back on the list, it's going to be at least another 10 years before we even look at getting back in the line that we were in before we were pulled out of it. So just an update for council, and that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
All right, next item, future agenda items. Any member of council have a future agenda item? All right. Next.
I do have one question. Are we going to keep the topic of the East Kern Healthcare District on the agenda for the next meeting, or is this just done this time and then we'll bring it back?
For now, I think for since I'm the one that asked for it, I'm happy with saying we don't need it back on the next agenda. But I think as things progress, then we'll ask for it to be back on the agenda. Yeah.
Perfect. Just
Okay.
want to get that clarification.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, next we have mayor and council comments. Councilman Gorman, if you would like to lead us off.
My only comment is that this, November 5th, there's a special election? Is it on the 5th, 4th? Early November, a special election, an expensive special election. It's over $250 million. It's almost as much as, was estimated that our Salvation water pipeline from California City to Ridgecrest might cost. That whole election was called by the governor to give him an opportunity to practice a little extra gerrymandering and try to outdo what is being done by his counterparts, political counterparts in Texas and elsewhere. I would make it a point to remember November the 4th and remember Proposition 5 is out there and needs your attention. 50. Did I say that right? 50. I can see why I ignore a 0. Forgive me. That's what it's all about. It would teach him a lesson if he got a resounding no on Proposition 50. That's all I had to say.
All right, so I want to note that on this day in history, October 1st, 1975, it was the Thrilla in Manila. Really? It was. It was Muhammad Ali versus Frazier in the old rope-a-dope. Also want to use this time to talk about the flood that happened. I was actually stranded on 395. We had a flat tire. We were going about 20 miles an hour, heading north on 395 from Barstow, a JV football game. Got a flat tire after the road had given way. And we managed to get ourselves to the side of the road until the heavens opened up and we got flooded into our car. It stopped our car from moving anymore. To say it was a traumatic experience is an understatement. The water was up to my wife's passenger side window. We had our daughter in the car with us. And it was a terrifying thing. I am thankful for City Manager Strand, for our chief, who I relied on to contact to alert them to the situation. I also want to point out that there was a car behind us that got swept off the road about 80 to 90 yards west of 395 and had water going over their car. I have never been in a flood before. Did not think coming to the desert that would be when I would have it. But I'm thankful for the CHP officers that showed up to help out the drivers, the people stranded on that road. We were the only family traveling back from the Barstow game that made it home before midnight. I know that there were cars that were trapped on Garlock. I know that there were a lot of families behind us that got trapped on that road for a while until they could clear the road. It was a terrifying ordeal, but I am thankful to this community that we were able to get back into this community, to get home, to hear the love and support from individuals reaching out. Again, the tow trucking company, you know, we had a good laugh. The guy was 100% professional, helped us to try and overcome. We rode back with a couple who were completely flooded and off the road. Hearing their story, you know, our situation pales in comparison to the terror that they went through. And they weren't from the area. They were passing through and just happened to be stranded on 395. So I'm thankful. I'm super thankful that we had a flat tire, because I think that's what anchored us down and we didn't get floated off like the car behind us. But after the rain subsided, I was able to get out and really dig our car out because we were stuck in mud. And I didn't know what to do at that moment, waiting on the tow truck to get our car in. So me and some of the truckers just started grabbing some of the large rocks and boulders that were present on the road and trying to throw them off. I know that there probably was some type of thing that was going to come through and clear it, but again, I had no clue what to do in that moment. I felt completely helpless, having my wife and my daughter in the car, hoping that they can remain safe. Moving on from that, next week I get to fly back to my alma mater, Purdue. My wife is graduating with her master's degree, and so I want to send her congratulations. I think that's a fantastic thing that she's getting to the end of. I know she's tired of studying. It takes a lot to get higher education, but I'm proud of the work that she's done. You know, the role model that she can be for my kids, and for my kids to be able to see her walk across that stage and achieve something that she's really put time and effort and energy into. So that's all I have. Again, thanks to the city for the work that you guys did to keep this city safe. While I literally was on the phone with City Manager Strand saying, hey, I'm coming back and I'm ready to help out and whatever I can do, until I couldn't. Yeah, so I wish I could end this on a happier note, but thankful for the city. This place feels like home, and I was happy to come home to this community, the community that I love, and to feel the warmth and the love that I got from it. So that's all I have. Thank you all. Thanks all for who came to speak, those who called in. I appreciate it. As I say most times, right, the biggest fear people have is public speaking. Their second biggest fear is death. So people would much rather die than public speak. So I appreciate you all for coming up, giving your input, saying what you have to say, and giving us a different point of view. So thank you. And with that, we will adjourn at 8:18. Have a good night, everyone.